Hi there, Patricius Jiwandono here. Today we are going to talk about language testing, and our topic today is how to test speaking and writing. Now, probably you've been familiar with testing of reading comprehension and listening comprehension. There are receptive skills, but now we are going to learn how to test productive skills. By productive skills, I mean the skills of producing language through speaking or through writing. Now, as a language tester, we have to know how to test these two skills, speaking and writing. You will learn that in testing those productive skills, you need what is called rubric or scoring guideline. Okay, let's dive into our PowerPoint slides. So that's the topic for today, testing, speaking, and writing. First, few words about speaking and writing. Speaking and writing are productive skills. That means the students have to produce language, as opposed to reading, in which they have just read all the information there silently, or listening, in which they have to receive all the oral information. Yeah. In speaking, they have to produce language orally. In writing, they have to produce language through writing activity. Okay, so that's why it's called productive language. Reading and listening are receptive skills. Yes, as I mentioned before, those are the receptive skills because students receive language input and process it internally. Okay. Now, when we talk about speaking, there are sub-skills of speaking. One is the pronunciation. Yeah, that's very important. That's a very important sub-skills. That's a very important element in speaking. Without being able to pronounce words correctly, your speaking just doesn't make any sense. People just cannot understand you. Yeah. And then the second is grammatical accuracy. Also, your pronunciation is correct. If your grammar is broken, then there is no way you can send the message properly to the other person. Yeah. So grammatical accuracy is very important. And then you have appropriateness of the utterance. Appropriateness means when you talk to somebody more senior than you, or your parents maybe, or your teachers, you have to use language which is appropriate to them. You cannot talk to them the way you talk to your close friends or the way you talk to your mates. Yeah. So that's appropriateness of the utterance. And then the fourth one is fluency. Fluency is how smooth is your delivery. Yeah. The more you are halting, like having too many pauses or having too many fillers, like like that, then it's not fluent. Yeah. A fluent speaker will deliver his or her speech smoothly with very minimum hesitation or minimum pauses. Yeah. Okay, when testing speaking, the tester has to pay attention to those sub-skills and then score them. Now, this is what is challenging in testing speaking. You have to pay attention to the sub-skills, those three sub-skills: pronunciation, grammatical accuracy, and sometimes appropriateness of the utterance, and also fluency. Yeah, so imagine that you face somebody, a student, and then he or she is speaking, and then you have to concentrate on all of those sub-skills. It's a demanding task. Yeah, but that's what makes speaking, or that's what makes language testing interesting, right? Because it's challenging. So, rubric or scoring guideline or rating scale is needed in order to guide your scoring, so it will be reliable, yeah, and less subjective. So, in order to score somebody's speech correctly or properly, you have to have a scoring guideline. You have to have a rubric. you have to have a rating scale. Yeah. This document or this device will help you guide your rating, will help you guide your scoring, so that your scoring is not subjective, because it is guided along the guidance there. Yeah, because you are guided by the instruction, you are guided by the description of the speech. Yeah. And thus it will be reliable. Reliable means that when the scoring is out, people can trust it. People can say, yes, I can trust this scoring because the scoring was done through a correct procedure. Okay, so now let's go to the example of a rubric or a scoring guideline. Now, this is an example, a very simple example. You can develop it further, or if you check out on the internet, there are plenty of scoring guidelines which are probably more complex than this one. But this will give you the idea of what a scoring guideline or what a rubric looks like. Yeah. So say that we are conducting a test of speaking. You decide to include in your rubric or in your scoring guideline that you are going to measure the accuracy, the fluency, and the appropriateness. So you are going to look at these elements when you test somebody's speaking. You are going to look at his or her accuracy, his or her grammar accuracy. You are going to look at his or her fluency, and you are going to look at his or her appropriate style, appropriate language style. Okay. So, and then you have a range of score. For example, for the range is from 10 to 30. This is the actual scores for poor performance. Then you have average, say 31 up to 70. And then you have good, 71 up to 100. Yeah. And then for every element here, for every subskill, you assign a score. For example, if somebody is speaking, then you score him or her. Oh, in terms of accuracy, this guy is good. So you probably give him or her 80 here. Yeah. In terms of fluency, well, the speaker seems to be hesitant a few times, seems to make many fillers like well, like that. Yeah. And so the fluency, you give a score of say 70. Because he or she is not very fluent. And then appropriateness, again, you look at the language being used by the speaker, and then you decide whether he or she has been using an appropriate language or not. If you think that the speaker is using an appropriate language, then you probably can assign a score of 90 or 89. Yeah. So here, then you have a composite scores, which is comprised of a score of accuracy, of score of fluency, and score of appropriateness. Together, they make up the whole score for this person. And then you can total them, you can average them. You can average the score, and then you come to the final score. Yeah. Okay, so that's an example of a rubric or scoring guideline for testing speaking. Now let's go to the writing. Now the subskills of writing. Writing includes several subskills. First of all, accuracy, that's grammar, including punctuation too. Yeah. And then number 2 is diction or vocabulary, choice of words, the vocabulary of the essay. And then coherence. Coherence means whether the essay is easy to understand or not. That's also important in a piece of writing. Yeah, so you have 3 subskills here: accuracy, which is grammatical accuracy, the vocabulary, and then the coherence, the extent to which the writing is easy to understand or not. Yeah. So when testing writing, the tester has to pay attention to those subskills and then to score them. Again, when you read a piece of writing from your students or from a test takers, you have to pay attention to those sub skills: the grammar, the coherence, the choice of words, probably the style, and some others. Yeah. So again, a rubric or scoring guideline or rating scale is needed here in order to guide the scoring, so it will be reliable and it will be less subjective. Because without the scoring guideline, then you probably score them according to your subjective opinions, and that is dangerous. Yeah. When you let too much subjectivity into your judgment, into your scoring, then your scoring is not reliable. People won't trust your score because they will say, "Oh, you are being too subjective when you score that piece of work." Yeah. Now, in order to reduce or decrease the subjectivity, in order to minimize the subjectivity, you have to have a rubric or a scoring guideline or a rating scale. Okay. Now let's go to the example. Now this is the rubric or scoring guideline for a piece of essay. Again, you have elements here listed in the left-hand column: accuracy, vocabulary, and coherence. Then for every element, every subskill, you have a range of score. For example, 4, 10 up to 30, average 31 up to 70. This represents the scores. Yeah. So the scores range from 31 to 70 for an average performance. And then good is 71 up to 100. Okay. Again, you will look at a piece of writing, at a piece of essay, and then you will score each of the elements. Accuracy. Oh, this grammar is not very good. There are quite a few or many or some grammatical mistakes. So, okay, let me score only 65 here. You put the 65 here. Okay. And then you look at the vocabulary. The choice of words is very, very limited. Many words are repeated over and over again, yeah, which indicates that this writer probably lacks vocabulary mastery, because he or she repeats some words over and over again several times. Yeah. So the range of vocabulary is probably not quite good. So, okay, let's give her or him 30. Yeah. Coherence. You look again, you look at the piece of writing, you look at the piece of essay, and then you judge whether this piece of essay is easier to understand or not. Now, probably because of several grammatical mistakes here and there, the piece of essay is not very easy to comprehend, and therefore the score is only, say, 68. Okay, so, and then you total the score, and then you draw an average of the scores, and then you come to the final score for this candidate. And then you pick up the next essay, the next written work. Then you do the same thing again. All along, you are guided with the rubric or the scoring guideline. Yeah. So that's it, how to score speaking and writing.